Our Arkiana boys are already back from Tuscaloosa to talk about the Arkansas loss to Alabama and what the Razorbacks will do coming up with this off week and the rest of the season. 6 more games left for the Razorbacks. Hey, I'm Jim Harris, host of the Arkiana Hogs podcast. I'm joined each week by Mike Shepard, former defensive tackle for the Razorbacks, and former safety for the Razorbacks, Rick David. They both happen to be native Louisianans who now call Arkansas home after being Razorback stars back in the day. And
Funrow.
Yeah, he's from Funrow. That's Mike Shepard, and David from the Big Easy. So we got both the northern half and the southern half of Louisiana covered. They both know great food. We're already talking about that LSU trip. That's still a ways off. You guys just had a pretty good trip to Tuscaloosa, other than the result you saw, Mike.
Oh, yeah. As far as the trip goes, we had a perfect trip. We were fortunate enough to make a James Bond travel with a flight in and a flight out. And had a good experience. My first trip to Tuscaloosa, it was a maiden voyage, so I enjoyed the crowd. I thought their fans were very congenial, and we didn't hear any smack talk at all. No. It wasn't an LSU away game. And, of course, the weather was beautiful. The Hogs really represented us well. For me, overall, as a general statement, I'll say that the Razorbacks performed well except for the fake punt. Outside of the fake punt, we were spot on.
See, I didn't have a problem with the fake punt as far as I understood the momentum part of it. I thought it was just poorly executed, but I understood. I could see it both ways. I mean, when it happened from my point of view, it didn't surprise me that he pulled it, if that makes any sense. I've seen enough film of Bielema. I've seen what he's done at Arkansas, but I've also seen what he did at Wisconsin against teams like Iowa. Well, Alabama is in Iowa. You're not faking the punt against a bunch of other slow guys, basically. This is the fastest team in football. Rick, I know just from tweeting back and forth with you during the game, you didn't like it at all.
No, I did not like the call. I appreciate aggressive play calling. So there's a portion of me that goes, well, yeah, if that works, it really would have helped swing a lot of momentum in our favor. There's no doubt about it. But, when I had tweeted you earlier on in the week on the keys to a Hog victory, the number one thing I talked about was solid special teams. And they were pretty solid until that call, right. Because then that puts your defense in a very difficult situation. They performed very well at that moment because they held them to a field goal. Mm-hmm. So it didn't kill us, but it did with the momentum kind of change. And you're like going, oh, we get the ball at midfield right now. This is great. And so that was frustrating. You look at
they actually scored a touchdown after the fake punt.
And
they scored. I thought they held them to a field goal.
No, they scored on an 81-yard play.
Run.
Okay.
We got the ball back after the 81-yard touchdown pass when Calvin Ridley beat, Ramirez. Yeah. Is that his name? Santos Ramirez. Tough play. Freshman getting caught up. Redshirt freshman. I've seen it before. I said this on the Hog Zone. I said, I know another redshirt freshman that got beat by Joe Adams on the double move, ended up being a pretty good player, the Honey Badger for LSU in 2010. I mean, those things happen when you haven't seen that in high school, and you probably haven't seen that very much on the Razorback field either with the receivers that Arkansas has. I mean, Calvin Ridley's going to be a pro. He's playing on Sunday sooner rather than later. However, they come right back, having given up the touchdown, having lost the lead, and then Bielema decides, I got to roll the dice here. And it was 4th and 5. Mm-hmm. It wasn't 4th and 1 like it had been earlier, or a 4th and a long one, or a 4th and 2 with not faking it. I mean, you remember they went to the line. They went ahead and punted. I mean, went to the line, tried to draw them off sides. That didn't work, and they punted.
Which was technically fundamentally sound. Bielema was going through his progression there. It was a nice. We had them where we wanted them. Yeah. I don't know if you remember how it felt, Rick, but when they ran the fake punt, It was right after the long score, fake punt. You kind of felt like the fans got off their hands at that point.
Got fired up.
There was the momentum really grew,
plays.
and that was a big one. It was to me, it just didn't fit as a Arkansas fan.
And I don't know about players. I know what the fans of Arkansas felt like. Oh no! And then they drove 45 yards or however far to go up 17-7, and basically you're saying right then, ball game, because Arkansas offensively had done nothing other than getting the ball on the 12-yard line and scoring on a short drive.
Well, like Mike said, you could just feel it. It was like, you could feel as fans the momentum just falling out.
And I don't think a fake punt getting the first down by a yard was going to make us go, okay.
What do you do after that?
So that's where, if we would have gone ahead and you want a momentum changer, let's take the situation where it's 4th and 1, we're in Alabama territory, and we decide to not go for it. We try and draw them off sides with multiple formations. That was a point in the game where I thought we should have had great play calling, and we should have been aggressive. We talked about on the last podcast, or the previous podcast before that, where Petrino, on a 4th and 1, threw the ball over LSU's head with Lightning Crawford and won a game. Then last year we're playing Texas A&M. We got 4th and 1. It's short. And they slip A.J. Derby out against Texas A&M, score a touchdown. Why didn't we do that kind of situation? Right. That's where the momentum changer could have really taken control of the game at that point.
Right.
And so, it was a little desperation to do the fake field goal. I realized our offense could not move the football, and that plays into it. I understand that.
And at that point, then, after giving Alabama just terrible field position all night with good good punting, good special teams, from that point on, Alabama started it almost on Arkansas's end of the field the rest of the game, and Arkansas ended up, with terrible field position if they got it, and in a passing situation, down 10 points with a quarter to go, and having not done anything offensively to speak of other than scoring after, and give credit for Santos Ramirez, nice interception, nice run back, penalty, moves it inside the red zone. Arkansas did convert late in the half, and they got a good play there. Also, we hadn't said much about Josh Liddell, but he also had an interception, and that's what Arkansas needed. Turns out Arkansas probably needed the kind of turnovers that Ole Miss got. Ole Miss got 5 turnovers to beat Alabama. And think about that. They got 5 turnovers, scored 43 points. Alabama still scored 37 points on Ole Miss's defense, which I think is great.
Which bodes very, very well for Arkansas for Arkansas in the future. No doubt about it. Going into the second half of the season, there are a lot of really good things, in particular on the defensive side of the ball. To see Brooks Ellis have 15 tackles, 13 unassisted, that was impressive. They couldn't run the football on us. They really couldn't. If you look at how well they ran the ball throughout the year, Derrick Henry ran it on Georgia. They ran it on Ole Miss.
They've always broken a play, and they never broke a running play of significant yards.
That's right. No, they were passing time when they ran the ball.
They were. So we were really sound up front, and we were sound in the secondary for the most part, with the exception of basically Ridley for Alabama ran a post-go route.
Yeah, how did that work out from the view y'all had with the whole field, that it ended up safety, cover, and Ridley?
When we were there, we thought it was mainly the play action that caused our safety to bite, Ramirez to bite. But Rick went and looked at it again, and it was actually a post-go route, which is tough for a safety, because as soon as you commit to that post, then that guy plants and heads up the field.
Yeah, you need to – this is where – when you're scouting and you're watching film throughout the week, you've always got to realize that they're going to go for the jugular on the first on first down. That's when they're going to do it. And so, as a safety, you have that in the back of your head. And in listening to the commentators on the replay, they were talking about how he likes to run that run. Or I think it was Bielema that said, they noticed he liked to do the double moves, the post go. Yeah. And that's a hard thing to do. It's really hard to cover because it takes your eyes. Once they make the move on the slant portion of the post, you take your eyes and you start looking inside. And that's what he did. He should have kept his eyes on the receiver a little bit longer and make sure he's committed to the post because he wasn't all committed.
Yeah, and I would like to look back on the film and have a wide range view of it too, but I would imagine other first downs they'd probably run just the post part of it and set that play up. I think they were biding their time, kind of like you talked about last week about Arkansas pulling that card out at the right time against Tennessee to win it. I think that was a card Lane Kiffin was holding, and in a game that was one score game, and actually really pulled it out at the perfect time.
Oh, he did pull it out at the perfect time. There's no doubt about that. I'll tell you this much: I do not want Lane Kiffin to be my offensive coordinator, though. I just do not believe he's a very good coordinator.
Well, 2 years in a row that Arkansas has really stretched the running game out wide, made them run more east-west rather than north-south, and kept them from breaking plays. I mean, really, the final score is 27-14. I know that is the score, but this game was it doesn't feel like it was a 27-14 game. It definitely plays about like we predicted on the Hogs Zone, Rick, that it was going to be about a 10-point game.
Yeah.
If Arkansas lost, it wasn't going to be, by 28 points like Georgia did. Right?
Well, yeah. We're talking about pulling out the trump card at the right time. This was a game where both defenses were controlling the tempo, controlling the performance. The Hogs, and it was a good routine they had going where stopping them, making out, if we get stopped, of course, Alabama was stopping us consistently. They dominated our run game, period. So they stop us, we punt it. Special teams, our punt coverage was perfect, kept them inside of the 20 each time. And from that point, all you had to do was just execute. Pulling the trump card. I'm very encouraged by the Razorbacks' performance in this game, except for the fake punt. Again, I'll repeat. We had a very good performance. We executed the game. The fake punt is where the momentum turned. And when you're playing a team like Alabama, which I think is going to be better than we feel after watching that, I think that Alabama's going to finish the season pretty well. Yeah. I know their offense is a little lacking from our view. But I think really the Razorbacks came out of this game, in my opinion, I'm encouraged as a fan. I think we've gotten better this week.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with Mike. I think that they realize what they can do and who they can compete with. We especially on the defensive side of the ball, we continue to see improvement there. Offensive side of the ball, you got to realize that front seven, they were legit. That's the strongest front seven you will see, possibly the best front seven I've ever seen. Even in Alabama's tenure, our tenure, I should say, in the SEC, when you had Copeland and Curry and those guys, this front's better than that front, I believe. So.
Yeah, and I see some defensive backs back there that are wonderfully talented. Fitzpatrick, number 29, is going to be an incredible player. He scored on a block punt last week against Georgia. We're going to talk a little bit about this. I'm going to ask you guys a question we were asked on the Hog Zone. Was it all Alabama's defense? Was it Arkansas's offense? Or as I answered, probably a little bit of both. This is the end of part one of our podcast. We are going to take a moment, and we are at the Pizza Cafe this week on a Sunday night. So sorry for you folks who showed up at Starbucks looking for us on Monday, but our venue has changed. Very nice of the Pizza Cafe folks to have us and turn the music down so we can do our podcast. We'll be back with part two after this. Go have a drink, get your beer, come back.
Pepperoni.
Yeah, get you a pepperoni pizza, whatever you're doing, and come back and listen to part two. Welcome back to the Arkiana Pod Podcast. I'm Jim Harris, your host. I'm joined by Mike Shepard from Funroe, Louisiana, who played for the Razorbacks, defensive tackle, 1986 through 89. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. And Rick Davie, safety from Big Easy, who played 1989 through 92?
88 to 92. Redshirted 88.
Yeah, you're a 5-year guy.
Yeah.
Were you ever redshirted? Oh, you still have a redshirt year? Did you play all 4?
I do. I dream about it
Can we
sometimes.
put you up there? Can we get you one more year?
You know, I have bad dreams about that, too.
Okay.
Mike had the fun red shirt where you're a senior
Yeah.
and you're redshirting.
Yeah.
So his playing time was done so he could just go out and have a beer with us.
Well,
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
that would be fun, too.
Go to the business school and then go have a beer.
Our Archiana Hogs were in Tuscaloosa Saturday night. We're really talking mostly about that game since we have an open date this weekend. We can just focus on Alabama and kind of vent here at the Pizza Cafe with a couple of cool ones, although Mr. David just has pepperoni pizza and water in front of him. He's staying in his playing shape, I see.
That's it.
That's fine. You go that way. I left you guys off at the end of Part 1 by asking a question that we were asked on the Hog Zone on Channel 11 Saturday night. Was it all Alabama's defense? Was Arkansas's offense just not up to par? Or was it, as I answered, a combination of both? Mike, you want to start us
Sure.
off?
Yeah, I think you look at the numbers in the Sunday paper this morning, and you can see the effect that Alabama's defense had on us. Where we've been successful in the last few weeks, we were not successful against Alabama, and that is directly attributed to the front 7 of Alabama. I think they're really that good. We weren't able to run the ball as we planned and as we expect. When you see Collins against A&M, he had 2 or 3 gaps to run through. He could choose, and his hesitation and moving and shifting and vision was able to be utilized. Against Alabama, he was just simply trying to get back to the line of scrimmage. And when that happens all game, at some point, you do get a little desperate. And I think that's what caused some of the failure of our offense. At the same time, I was impressed with Brandon Allen's ability to scramble, to move around, move the pocket outside when he had to, avoid loss here and there. Yet again, if you wanted to judge our quarterback, Brandon Allen, on his failure, the fumble out of bounds and the interception, you know, when you realize there's nothing there and you're having to really stretch yourself, sometimes you'll make mistakes like that. So that was my view on our offensive performance.
Rick?
I think the reason for our inability to move the ball on the offensive side was due to Alabama. Alabama up front, they're going to have possibly all 7 of those guys play in the NFL.
Sure. And I think a lot of the secondary as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. They're loaded on the defensive side of the ball, and they're just going to continue to dominate throughout the year. I mean, you look at Georgia, Nick Chubb popped for one play that went 80 yards. That was the difference maker for Georgia in getting rushing yards. Other than that, they would have looked like us, you know. And Nick Saban said when that play occurred against Georgia, it was just because the linebacker got out of position. It wasn't like somebody got pushed around and they created this gaping hole. It was a bust.
And it got corrected from 1 week to the next.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, I also think that where we could have done some things better, we could have attacked the field a little bit more. I'd like to have seen, you know, several vertical plays to open up their defense. And then, you know, this is a game where we missed Jonathan Williams. Mm-hmm. He's a downhill runner. He wouldn't dance. He's going to, you know, he would have found a little seam, turned his shoulders, and gotten a little bit more upfield. I thought Raleigh Williams was going to be able to do that a little bit more, but, you know, he was getting stuffed as well.
Yeah,
you talked about coming out and running the no huddle, how that was effective. Yeah. We were having to reach with things like that we don't typically do.
Right. Well, see, my problem with the whole game and the plan, so to speak, I guess, why start the game out in 5 wides? Collins was one of the wides, and come out, hit a 15-yard pass right off the bat, and never, ever go back with it. Don't keep running it until they adjust to it. Just show it one time, hit a play, and then go back to your vanilla, pretty much easy to defend for Alabama stuff that they ran. And then in the second half, they started the second half, Arkansas did, with, I thought, man, genius, to get in there 7-3 and come out and give them some no huddle. I thought that was great. And they did it that one series. They moved it for a first down and then got stopped. and then they never did it again. And I'm thinking, was all that stuff just sort of like having a trick play, and that's all they were doing, or was there obviously wasn't any commitment to those things that actually were successful? And I don't look at 5 wide as a trick play. I thought all this passing against Toledo and against UTEP and all that we saw in the preseason was sort of hinting to what we were really planning to do against Alabama when you know you're going to run into a wall over and over. Instead, you get into a game. I get it. I get that you don't want to do anything crazy and lose the game in the first 3 quarters. And I know they wanted to get it to the 4th quarter, or at least to halftime. But you keep running into that wall and running into that wall, and don't use the plays like the sweep, the pitch sweep cutback that got 6 yards by Collins.
You also have to look at why didn't they do it? Mm-hmm. And the whys are, look at the people that are out there. Well, their defense, and our defense playing well. Yeah. But you have to look at our receivers. You don't have Keon Hatcher out there. That's a big deal. We were throwing it deep with Keon Hatcher. Dominic Reed can run a go route, but you look at that route he ran over the middle where Brandon Allen was through the interception. Brandon shouldn't have thrown it because that guy
double covered.
He was double covered. He was bracketed. But at the same time, watch Reed when he's running. It doesn't look like he's flying. His 4.3 speed didn't look like it. It was like a receiver running unsure. These are the kind of things that we don't have the knowledge around. And if we were in a meeting room with the wide receivers and the quarterbacks, you'd probably have some more insight as to why we're not doing those things.
Well, I detected from my Twitter feed last night and from a lot of comments that people aren't really pleased with the new offensive coordinator, Dan Enos. That, I even threw out, so do you wish that Bielema had gone ahead and given Jim Chaney the raise he wanted and kept him here? What are we not getting out of the offense what you hoped we were going to get?
Some of the fundamentals on offense that we need to be reminded of sometimes. First of all, the defense we played. When you look at the stats, we had 44 yards rushing last night. That's a stark contrast to what we're used to doing. And when you're not able to perform your game plan, you do start to reach. And I think the no huddle, was one of those trump cards that you throw down one time, and you haven't really introduced it that much. So the gimmick type stuff you might see at the fake punt. What I've yet to see is, and maybe it's because we don't have the people, the wide receivers. We're missing Jonathan Williams again. But how about getting on the edge? The toss sweep worked one time. Why not run it again? I don't know the answer to that question. Why didn't we run that again? Maybe that's something to do with it.
I think what Mike was alluding to is a big deal. Dan Enos, with a full complement of athletes that he thought he was going to have at the beginning of the year.
It's better than Chaney.
It's better than Chaney. Yeah, Chaney had Jonathan Williams, Keon Hatcher, and he had A.J. Derby, And while I think Sprinkle's done a great job of stepping in that role for A.J. Derby, we don't have another Keon Hatcher on the field right now. Yeah. And we're missing his leadership. And Jonathan Williams is a downhill running back that's very hard to tackle. So just think if LSU would lose Leonard Fournette. Yeah. I'm not saying that we don't have a capable replacement, and they don't either, but it would cripple their team, and we needed Jonathan Williams this week.
Right. Last year, Jonathan Williams had, I think it was 84 yards against Alabama. Not something you're going to jump up and down about, but think about this. Splitting time with Alex Collins last year, he had 84. Collins had 13. Collins, being the main man last night, doubles it and has 26 yards rushing.
Yeah, but that's running styles. That's what you don't go at Alabama with a scat back. Somebody who's quick in the hole.
Or a guy that dances. You don't have time to dance.
You don't have time to dance. It's hit the hole and go. More of a Raleigh Williams, Jonathan Williams type player is going to be successful. So Dan Enos needed the weapons. I think his scheme is better than Chaney's. Yeah. I think he's a better technical coach. He's more demanding. So from switching out coordinator.
Well, I think he's done. I don't want to imply that, and I think that he has also done wonders technically for Brandon Allen individually. Right. I think that you see a guy who, I know people scream and holler. But that's the guy that takes the snaps. That's the guy you're going. If you don't win, you're screaming and hollering. They've done this about Bill Montgomery, Joe Ferguson, Clint Sterner. You go through the list, Kevin Scanlon, Ron Calcagney, everybody that ever quarterback.
Jr.
Yeah, if you don't win, you're screaming about what the quarterback didn't execute. And if you do win, wow, he had the greatest game ever. Let me ask y'all, from seeing the game last night, did Alabama do something differently that he couldn't see Hunter Henry and connect with Hunter Henry until less than 2 minutes are left to go in the ball game?
Simply put, for me, Alabama's defensive backs were very effective, and when they wanted to lock us down, they did it. We were covered.
Yeah.
Period.
I mean, yeah, they were on Hunter like white on rice. I mean, they really were. They did a great job. They had a great team plan. They understood where he was at all times. You know, that's the genius of Nick Saban's on the defensive side of the ball. You know, Kirby Smart, I mean, while he is defensive coordinator, he still has a mentor, and his name is Nick Saban.
The other question that's pressing on my mind is, I mean, you had Bret Bielema come in here, and, you know, he didn't want to come here to play Alabama, wanted to beat them. You have the people against this idea, thinking you can't out-Alabama Alabama. You've seen 3 games now with Bret Bielema, and they've been competitive these last 2. That first one wasn't at Tuscaloosa, but this is the closest Arkansas's played Alabama since 2007 in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah.
Can he out Alabama?
You know, when we were at the game, Rick was spot on with his observation that the teams that have beaten Alabama were the spread offense. You know, if you run a spread offense and you can get on the edge and get vertical against Alabama, you beat them. So maybe the answer is no. I don't know, Rick. What do you see?
It's such a hard question to answer, and the reason why I think it's hard is because the spread offenses with mobile quarterbacks beat Alabama. That, you know, LSU has been better against the spread teams than Alabama has been against the spread team, and LSU was coached by Tables. But at the same time, you have to realize we are so much more competitive against Alabama right now with Bielema ball than we were with Petrino ball.
Yeah.
And it's because when you get a smaller lineman going up against that defensive line, that's a problem. Where we have our issues is we have no electric players. We don't have Christian Kirk. We don't have a Darren McFadden. We don't have
Joe
a
Adams.
Fournette. We don't have a Joe Adams.
Okay.
That's what we need.
Well, that's going to lead to my next question. Yeah. Where do those players come from? We're into the 4th recruiting year for Bret Bielema now coming up. He had a short time to get that first class with Collins and Kirkland together. Where are these players going to come from? They have one commitment now. They had a decommitment last week from Texas, so they got one commitment out of the state of Texas. They're going out. They're not beating Alabama, Ole Miss, and LSU for players out in the Southeast. You're getting some 4 or 5 players in Arkansas that are being highly recruited, and that's about it. Where are they going to get them? Can they get them?
That's the burning question. They try and get this Devin White kid out of Louisiana, or the running back out of Georgia. His name's Whaley. You know, they need to get one of those guys. They need electric football players because the state doesn't have them right now. You know, they've offered only 4 guys in the state, and that's an issue for the University of Arkansas to be successful. Because if you look at why Nick Saban was successful at LSU, it was because he had a bunch of Louisiana boys. He stopped everybody, the Peyton Mannings, the Warwick Dunns, from leaving and going to Tennessee and Florida State. He said, "You're coming here. You're going to LSU." And Les Miles just picked up that ball and ran with it. You know, and then, you know, in Alabama, the state of Alabama, they've got very good players over there, and, you know, they pretty much split it right down the middle. You know, don't get me wrong, some people will slip out and go to Georgia every once in a while. It's not too far. But, you know, it's about your in-state recruiting.
What's more, that Georgia guys come to Alabama.
Yeah, and you get... Yeah.
Or you go nationally and get a Calvin Ridley from elsewhere.
Yeah.
I guess he's from the Northeast.
Yeah.
I mean, you get guys those guys aren't dependent, and LSU's not either, just depending on their in-state guys, but they're getting 5 stars from out of state.
But here's where we have to give credit to Bielema. The recruiting is the best it has been.
Period.
It is. We just don't have the in-state guys right now. So Ricky Town was all world. He goes ahead and he commits to Alabama, and then he flips to USC, and now he's at Arkansas. That's a big plus. We're throwing the ball more, but we obviously need more dynamic receivers out there. We need to make some more plays so we can bring people in. But they see us throwing the ball a whole lot more. That needs to happen, and we need to go land one of those big name guys.
Again, fundamentals in place. Let's talk about what we're doing well. Who is it? Ageem? Is he the number 1 recruit in the state of Arkansas?
Right.
Where is he committed? So we're doing what we can in state, right? If you move out to the border states, we're talking about Louisiana. Of course, that's a personal thing for both of us. We know there's talent there. Yeah. Who's your personal friend and former competitor, now teammate, Smith, the wide receivers coach? He's doing a great job in Louisiana. He's given us a chance at some of the guys who are going to make a difference for us. You talk about Bastrop, you talk about Spring Hill, Louisiana, you're talking about New Orleans. He's given us a shot at some of these out-of-state guys.
Yeah. Well, you look at that, just he has brought guys that have made immediate impact. Last night you had Mike Smith had Dwayne Eugene got his first start.
I thought he played well.
He did play well. Andre Tolliver and Eugene played together at Rummel High School, and then you go ahead and you look at Santos Ramirez and Jared Cornelius. They played with each other at Evangel, and they're getting another kid from Rummel who was an Alabama recruit, Briston Guidry, So these are the kind of guys that Mike's getting down in Louisiana that can definitely come in and help us out. We just need more of them.
And I do think of the 2 areas where Bret Bielema focused in, getting the offensive line, the defensive line, depth on defensive line, more offensive line guys. It looked better last night. The defensive line had its best game of the year against a really good offensive line. And there is more depth there. I guess the biggest disappointment to me is the offensive line hadn't quite lived up to the preseason hype that we thought it might get. Putting them on the front of the guide and they were going to be all America. They're still not there yet.
Not quite. Position by position, you'd have to pick our weakness right now. Rick's talked about it. We don't have the speed, the electric speed at the key positions that are making a difference. Wide receiver, you don't have the electric returner, you don't have the electric running back without Jonathan Williams. It gets to the edge and makes a difference for us downhill. So I think if you go position by position, offensive line, we're very sound, very sound.
Yeah, we still need just a little bit more depth on the offensive line because we're going to lose some guys possibly even this year.
Linebacker.
We definitely need more linebackers, but we need the receivers and the running backs. We need people that can make it go.
We just need a whole 20 to 25 man class that has some outstanding skill top to bottom.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know. Easier said than done. Good luck to Bret Bielema on that. That's the end of the Arkiana podcast for this week. Mike, Rick, thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Go Hogs.
Woo Big Suey.
And we will be back next week to talk Auburn. That'll be a lot of fun. But enjoy our discussion on Alabama this week. If you like the podcast, let us know. Anything you might think we might do differently, let us know that too. You can comment on it on sportinglifearkansas.com. Thanks for listening. See you next week.